They don't realise.
No.
I like that. I like that. OK, that's good.
Right, just coming up to 7:45. Over the years, famous people who've made an impact on the world have had the honour of being immortalised in stone, from Winston Churchill to suffragette Emily Pankhurst, both famous names that contributed historically to our society.
Well, now Winchester University has unveiled their plans to erect a life-size statue. This one is in tribute to 18-year-old Swedish environmental activist Greta Thunberg. So is a teenager, is she deserving of such an accolade? Well, joining us now is sculptor of the statue, Christine Charlesworth, journalist Ella Whelan, who thinks it's a waste of money that could be used elsewhere, and activist Astrid Roman, who believes that Greta is an inspiration. Lovely to talk to all of you this morning. I'm going to come to the sculptor first of all, because you're the person that created this. Were you thrilled? Were you thrilled with the thought of doing this and what she represents, and did you feel it was worthwhile?
I was certainly thrilled to be given this commission, yes. And Winchester University is one of the most green universities in the country. They have just built an amazing building, which I had a tour all the way around. It's got gardens growing on the roof. It's using all the rainwater and everything. And it's very much, therefore, in keeping that we have a statue of Greta standing outside this new building. I have depicted her as a young girl, as she is now. She's 18. So if she wanted to go to Winchester University, she could do. Greta has already had to cope with quite a lot of things in her life. As people know, she's on the autistic spectrum. The higher end, she's very intelligent. Having said that, she, being on the autistic spectrum, you have to cope with lots of hidden problems. You're scared of crowds for a start. You don't make friends very easily. You can't put your point across very easily. But in spite of that, she's able to stand up, usually on a box, because she's very, very small. She's always going to look a lot younger than she is because of her size. Stand on a box. Her feet, her body language show that she's really actually insecure. She doesn't do.
She's there doing it. She's there doing it. Ella, I mean, what do you make of that then, Ella Whelan? What do you make of that? She embodies the spirit of a very green university. She's inspirational because she's overcome challenges herself. What's wrong with that as a statue for Winchester University?
Well, as an individual, there's no doubt Greta Thunberg is, a really high achiever in many ways. To her bravery and courage to be able to get up on that box and do that is very commendable. I totally agree with that. But I mean, when it comes to statues, we've had for the last year endless political discussions about the political worth of statues. And so it's important to look at what the politics behind Greta Thunberg, and in particular the school strike. I mean, it's notable that the Students' Union at Winchester is not supporting the unveiling of the statue. They're actually very annoyed because there have been library cuts and staff redundancies at Winchester University. And the Students' Union are very ticked off that the university's blown about 24 grand on a statue. So there's that argument. So whether or not she'll inspire students, as the university intends, well, I mean, the students don't seem very happy about that statue being there. But more importantly, I mean, Greta Thunberg's politics, the politics of Extinction Rebellion or the school climate strike, is all about anti-innovation. It's actually about anti-education. It's about we shouldn't do anything. We shouldn't affect the world. We should bow down to nature. Very much a kind of, I think, a reactionary view of how to deal with climate change. And so in that way, having that politics represented at a university seems to me not the kind of inspiration we want to give to students.
Yeah, but Ella, if we don't bow down to nature in some respect, we won't have a world to complain in.
Well, it's very different what's very different is bowing down to nature and doing nothing. Or what I prefer is to use human ingenuity, use those young minds at Winchester University to innovate a way out of the crisis or the difficulties we find. I think the problem with Greta Thunberg and the environmentalist politics that she represents is it's very much seeing human beings as the problem, whereas I see that and other people see that human beings are the solution to get us out of the situation that we're in. In particular, I mean, one of the more aggressive factors of not just Greta Thunberg's politics, but the politics that she represents, is this idea that, you know, there is no debate around environmentalism, that there is no debate around the climate crisis. I mean, there is a debate to be had. There's a debate about how we get out this crisis, and particularly at an institution like a university, anything that's anti-debate seems to me totally out of place.
I mean, Asad, I'm sure you've got an opinion on this. I mean, we've seen the controversy around statues in the last year. You know, the Edward Colston statue was pulled down in protests, you know, during a Black Lives Matter march. I mean, is this the right time to be erecting more statues?
I think we should maybe look at there's two different issues at play here. First of all, just responding back to Ella's point, you know, look, we recognise we're in the midst of a climate crisis. Millions of people's lives and livelihoods are being affected. This has been something that governments and big corporate giants have known for decades, have not acted. The opinion polls now show that overwhelmingly the majority of people do want our governments to act. And some of that credit clearly goes to the young people involved in the climate strikes, of which Greta is one. They forced it onto the political agenda. And of course, that's not the work of one individual, but clearly Greta takes some credit in terms of that. Now, Ella's been slightly disingenuous because her magazine, of course, has been bankrolled by rich billionaires who don't want action on climate change and have regularly platformed anti-climate and anti-environmental stories. So I think, you know, then there's the separate issue in terms of the statue itself. Look, you know, personally, I would welcome having more statues which inspire people, which recognise that young people's actions have changed society. I live in the East End. We've got, you know, the Match Girl strike in 1888, which led to the formation of the trade union movement that won us our basic rights for decent pay and holidays and sick pay. We should have more of those statues. Why should we only have statues of people whose contribution to society has been they've exploited people or killed a large amount of people or been filthy rich? So I think we should have statues of the NHS workers or frontline workers. We should reflect the society we live in, because art, you know, is meant to challenge us, it's meant to inspire us. And I think we could all do with being inspired to face the challenges of the world as we face.
OK, but one of the arguments against statues that have been controversial, because I'm going to try and phrase this carefully, because the actions that they've taken had a significant impact on the world, and so that benefited some people, but not all people. So their actions weren't wholly great. They've been pulled down, haven't they? Because people didn't like some of their actions. So I suppose one of the debates could be, if, as Ella points out, and we'll give her a chance to respond to the bankrolling point in a moment, if, as Ella points out, Greta's actions have created a debate, then we can celebrate her as somebody that's raised awareness. But then if the detail of her politics, in some people's eyes, are unhelpful, does that make her worthy of a statue?
Well, I would challenge the premise of what that somehow the details of her politics is controversial. Look, the reality is the climate science has told us we have already conceived. You don't need to be a climate scientist to see the impacts that are happening around the world. We know we need to make deep emission reductions. We need to change the way we consume. We need to change the way that we exploit both people and the planet for profit. It means looking and thinking about the world very, very differently, thinking about how we can be more sustainable and fair and just.
It's not seeing people as the problem, isn't it? Because some people look at it and think, well, I can't sail my way around the work. I've got to get the bus to work. I can't sail my way around the world. I can't give up everything. Some people see her as quite an extreme example, don't they?
But I think that doesn't do credit to either Greta or the climate strikers, because none of them are talking about that the responsibility is about us as individuals. Of course, we can all make a difference. The real issue in terms of emissions is about the way our economy is structured. And that economy is not only leading to a climate catastrophe, it's failing millions of people, both globally and, of course, here in this country, as we can see with the gross levels of inequality and poverty.
OK. Well, so, look, let's give Ella a chance to respond to the accusation that she's being bankrolled, and so her opinions are out of self-interest.
I don't want to use up my airtime talking about that. Let's leave that discussion for Twitter. But what I do want to say is it's interesting about the bringing up the issue of democracy and the way in which statues reflect are people and their sentiments. I mean, it's, you know, Greta Thunberg and the school strike is different to Extinction Rebellion, but what they share in common is an idea that the, you know, to reiterate my point about debate, that the future of the way in which we interact with the problems that climate change throws up, that the issues in which we, you know, have this balance between maintaining people's quality of life and not ruining the planet, well, they say that there is no space for debate. I mean, in fact, Extinction Rebellion says they only need about 3.5% of the population to get behind them to make change. So it's wholly undemocratic. I think that, you know, Greta Thunberg as an individual, you know, is to be celebrated for many reasons as inspiration for young people. But politically, what is her worth? And if we're talking about statues at a university, that's making, you know, the Winchester is trying to make a political statement about being a green university. You know, then you have to engage with the politics. And I think that the politics behind school strike and this particular undemocratic strain of climate change activism is regressive, it's anti-human, it's Malthusian actually in parts, and not doesn't have a place at a university.
OK, well, look, Assad, we know you don't agree with that, that portrayal of her. Christine, you're the one that sculpted her. We'll give you the final word.
Well, I hope that the statue of Greta will be an inspiration to the students who attend the university. If the students are having problems in their lives, then I hope they're going to be able to look at the statue and think, this young girl overcame problems in her life to get where she, to open the eyes of the world. And I hope it's going to help them to not necessarily open the eyes of the world, but open their own eyes and make a success of their own lives because of it.
OK, well, thank you very much indeed for ending it on such a conciliatory note.
Yeah.
Good to talk to all of you this morning.